Episode 81 of the podcast is about physical prompts and molding. They aren't that great for obedience work and for distance work, but for grooming and vet visits and home care, when we have a dog restrained and we need to physically move them and touch them, they're a perfect tool. Let's talk about it this week. You're listening to the Creating Great Grooming Dogs podcast. I'm Chrissy Newmeyer-Smith. I'm a certified professional groomer, a certified behavior consultant for canines, a certified professional dog trainer, and the owner of Happy Critters in Nashua, New Hampshire. And this, my friends and colleagues, is the podcast where grooming and training meet. This week I'm working on taking a course, doing some continuing ed for my training certifications, and there was an interesting discussion about physical prompting. And I want to talk to you guys about that today, because physical prompts and molding, let's talk about what does that even mean? That's when we come into contact with a dog to give a cue, information, or instructions. Like we're actually touching them, moving them into a position, or we're using our hands to give them a cue to tell them what we want them to do next. It's not part of regular obedience training anymore. And let me tell you why. Because the dog will learn about touch so quickly that they often totally ignore other cues, like their voice or anything else. So in obedience training, we've moved away to a more hands-off method so the dog is more prepared when we're out of reach, when they're off leash, when we cannot rely on physical touch. So an example, to help you think about how we're using that, we used to teach dogs to sit, or some people taught dogs to sit by pushing their backside down a little bit till they sat, or by pulling up on the leash while pressing their backside down. It molds them into a position. It physically manipulates them into the position you want, and then you tell them, good dog, or whatever, and, give cookies. But the method has fallen out of favor in dog training because the dogs who were taught that way have a huge problem transferring that to hands-off methods. So if you really want an off-leash reliable dog, and you want to be able to tell your dog to sit when they are out of your reach, when they're out of range, they don't understand it because they're relying on that physical information, that touch, that sensation on their body to tell them what you want them to do. As soon as you have hands on them, they kind of stop listening to you. And honestly, I didn't even put that together as far as grooming is concerned until I was just listening to this lecture. And how interesting that for grooming, how does that affect us as grooming? Because that's the time when we are actually relying on a dog to listen to our touch, pay attention to our touch, to be restrained with us in physical contact. It's actually the opposite of what we want for obedience training, because we don't want dogs that are off leash in our grooming settings. We want them to know exactly how to handle, being on a grooming table or at a vet's office with a leash on and maybe somebody holding or restraining. We want them to be able to handle our physical touch. So physical prompts and molding have gotten out of favor in dog training and obedience training for the very reasons that make them really exciting for grooming. And I'm saying really exciting because I'm an uber geek and I can't help myself. So I want you to think about like vet visits and other physical care. That's when we need to be able to move them around, touch them, and have them understand that this is how I'm expected to behave when there's a grooming loop. This is how I'm expected to behave when I'm on a table. Tables and grooming loops are pretty normal, right? So one table in a grooming loop is going to easily transfer as a physical sensation to other tables and other grooming loops, for the most part. Of course, there are always going to be different settings and stuff, but if we're teaching the physical touch of this is what it feels like to be on a table with a grooming loop, it feels a lot like being on leash, which is why a lot of dogs are better when they have a grooming loop on, or when I have, people at home asking me, hey, how do I give my dog a bath? I'm like, well, first thing, you can use his collar and his leash and just kind of, tie him in there too, or attach his leash to the front of the cabinet door if you have him on the counter. Sometimes just being on leash for a dog at home, they're like, oh, maybe I should be following the leash rules. The sensation of this object on my neck has an entirely different meaning for me than just being loose. So it's exciting when we're talking about grooming and vet visits and home health care for our pets. I know you probably aren't as excited as I am. But I want a dog to think that when we feel the grooming loop and we're standing on a table, we behave in a certain way. When a hand is under my belly, this is what I want you to do. When I'm holding a tool next to your ear, this is what I want from you. Now, here's something else that's really, really cool, or at least I think it's really, really cool, is that most of these things all have the same set of behaviors that we want, right? So the dog doesn't even need to learn a whole bunch of things. The dog is learning behaviorally. The dog is learning, this is what they want from me. What do we want on a grooming table or a vet visit or at home trying to put an eye medication in? We want the dog to just be calm, comfortable, cooperative, right? The 3 C's. We want it. We look for it. We reward it, right? We want them to be still for us, right? And that's part of calm and comfortable and cooperative, right? Just kind of be still, hang out, don't wiggle a lot. And we want a posable action figure. Now, I mentioned that in the past, and I should be circling back to that more often because I want you to think about that as the goal. The posable action figure. Yeah, that's right. You heard it here first. But think about you want that dog to allow you to lift their leg up. If that's what you need to scissor. I need to scissor your front left leg. I'm going to put my hand underneath, guide you into a position, support your leg there, do the thing I need to do, guide your foot back down to the table. Very different from what we tend to teach dogs to do in obedience stuff, which would be lift your leg for me without touching you, right? This is I physically want you to know when I apply a little bit of touch right here behind your leg and maybe even tell you to lift it up, but maybe not, and just I want you to allow me to move your leg into the position I need. Maybe it's forward. Maybe it's out to the side so that I can trim your armpit. Maybe it's so that I can lift your back leg so that I can find that little spot where I want to start my blending. Whatever it is, I want you to think we want dogs to let us guide them into positions. Much like, your Barbie that you wanted her to wave and you lift her arm up, Barbie's waving, right? So if we think the posable action figure is everything that we want, falls under posable action figure and the 3 C's, calm, comfortable, cooperative. So if we can get a dog to understand that all of our physical touches mean something, and this is how we behave while being physically touched, right? If it's so easy to make it a crutch during obedience stuff, so easy, in fact, that it makes it really hard and it's fallen out of favor because it's really difficult to undo, we should be doing it a lot more in grooming. We should be doing it a lot. Trainers need you to think about this. We should be doing it a lot more when we're talking about touch and toes. Not just touch toes, give goodies, but this is how I need you to behave when I'm moving your toes around and separating them out and really taking a look. So I want you to think that default is just hang out, let me move around you, touch you with stuff and things. And we can help a dog be really reliable about it. So some of you guys may be having some doubts right now, and you're thinking, yeah, really? If it were that easy. But if owners are doing this very hands-off method of training the rest of the time, some of these dogs are getting their hands-on type stuff only in the context of grooming and vet visits and maybe getting a harness put on, which is only put on one way ever. Like most owners don't put their harness on multiple ways or wipe their dog's feet down in multiple situations, right? So they don't have a lot of experience coming to us knowing how to be touched all over. So we send owners home with homework. But I want to give you another example. Here's another example. The dog who has been taught to sit with a slight press on their backside, which honestly, I hate when we teach dogs to sit that way. Partly because if you have 2 arms filled with groceries, you cannot tell your dog to sit if they are expecting a hand touch to mean sit. But I will say the other thing that made it a big peeve of mine is the dog that takes everything very, very literally. So imagine a German Shepherd. Let's use a German Shepherd as an example. They're up on the table, and every single time the brush passes over that little spot, that dog is certain you want them to sit. And they're going to insist on it. You have to de-shed that dog. You're going to touch that spot about 50,000 times, and every single time you do, that dog tries to sit. So you're trying everything you do to get that dog to stand up. But if you know that dog is sitting because in his mind it is so clear you just asked for a sit, let's use that, right? Let's use that. Oh, I'm on a grooming table. It's so clear in my mind that if someone's touching my foot and adding a little bit of pressure to lift it up, I should just let them lift it up. Like the dog that is so certain that touch is so direct. Touch makes sense to dogs, and we should be using it more because, frankly, that's our job. We're groomers and vets, and the physical care stuff, the job is to touch them all over, every which way, with multiple tools, and to have them be really comfortable with it. So I kind of see it as these little touches and stuff that owners are doing. Sometimes they're backfiring because the owners don't have a really clear view of what we need from the dog. The owners aren't necessarily understanding that, they need the dog to actually let them do stuff, not just to be like, tag, you're it, like the touch. And that's where groomers have a different job and a different insight than other fields, and where veterinary staff have a different insight than other fields, because other fields in the dog world are often coming from a dog owner point of view. Like, well, he'll let me do anything to him without necessarily thinking that he can't handle it for more than 10 minutes. Like he's never built an endurance level to handle it for more than 10 minutes, or with the absence of food, because some dogs have a meltdown. So we're going to touch more about physical touch and molding and the kind of things we can do to teach it, because it's so exciting. It's awesome for grooming. If you're enjoying this podcast, please remember to subscribe so that you don't miss any episodes, and tell all of your friends. If we want to teach dogs to let us adjust their body, move them around, reposition them, be a posable action figure, and using these physical prompts and molding, one of the things that we need to do is just get them used to this idea that it's pleasant. Touch can be so pleasant. Think about how many dogs just want to be petted all day. I don't think that most of us realize how pleasant touch can be until you have a dog who constantly wants to be crawling in your lap. One of my guys, he's like, if I'm touching him, he's pretty happy. Like that's all he needs in his life. Like, oh gosh, is she actually touching me? Maybe I can just crawl up beside her and everything's got to be great forever. And I've never had what they call a Velcro dog, but boy, he's pretty close. He is so close to being of that Velcro dog. Touch is important, and it's part of how we bond too. So I will give you an example, a dog that I groomed this weekend. I know I usually don't groom weekends, but working outdoors and trying to catch up on all of the COVID-19 stuff, all of my customers that need to be groomed on a nice day in New England weather. I just was like, okay, we have a nice day and it happens to be a Sunday. You guys want a Sunday groom? Great. So I've got this new puppy and I just started off with, let's just be pleasant. Let's just make this fun. It doesn't need to be crazy fun. It doesn't need to be toy-filled fun or treat-filled fun. It was just a little bit of petting, little bits of ear scritches, little bits of cuddling. That particular dog, I had to figure out what that individual dog likes, what that individual dog enjoys. And most dogs, being house pets, have experience with physical touch. There are things that they like, things that maybe they're not comfortable with, and will know ahead of time if a dog has issues with aggression toward people. Right? That would be different, and that's not part of what I'm talking about right now for physical touch, physical molding, and prompting, because a dog who has aggression issues with people is a different story. But the dog that just doesn't know how to behave on a table, well, how would they know? We have to teach them. So if we have this brand new puppy My first groom with this puppy, she's about 6 months old. I know that they got her from a breeder who kept her for quite a while, which is good. She was with her litter mates, and the breeder had, been doing baths. But this was my first time bathing her, grooming her. And when I move a foot, before I get into all of my tools, I got her on the table. Did some little ear scritchies, kind of got a feel for what she likes. Remember we've talked about loose and kind of feeling if she's wiggly under my hand, if she's stiff and rigid, or if she's loose. Get her loose, help her relax, pick up a paw. If she stiffens a little bit, I'm going to go back to helping her be loose. Help her be loose. She's going to be okay. Do some baby talk if that's what makes that dog relax and be more comfortable. If that's what makes that dog want to spin 5,000 circles on your table, like one of my guys, if I were to go, I'm pretty sure that one of my guys would be like, this is freaking awesome. I don't want to spin a dog into crazy land. But every dog is different. Figure out what they like. But physical touch, a little bit of petting. So another dog I was grooming pretty recently. First time I groomed this dog, an adult, obviously been groomed before, but I'm trying to do poodle feet. And this dog's starting to get a little bit wiggly. Even though I'm holding his leg, just spending a minute backing off with the clippers, continuing to hold his leg, and just petting him. With a finger, my index finger, just petting him until he settled down, relaxed into it. He wasn't over the top. I don't wait for him to get over the top. Just the first couple little bit of, I'm not ready. Just a little bit of pulling back with, oh, okay, I'm not ready. Just relax him. And I didn't have to get any peanut butter. I didn't have to get any extra tools. I didn't need to turn this into playtime. Just a little bit of petting. And you know what I did when he relaxed? I put his foot down, moved on to something else. Well, why would you do that? Because I want him to relax and think, when I'm relaxed, she might let go. Relax might be the off switch. Not all the time, but we want to build relax. Like, that relaxed thing felt good. And then I went back to something he's comfortable with. So that dog is thinking, I was a little bit scared, and she calmed me down. And then she stopped, calmed me down first, then stopped, then went on to something I was more comfortable with. When I circled back and went to that foot again, that dog was so much better. Like, okay, I understand now. This is okay. This is pleasant. And just petting. Slow, gentle petting. So be thinking about touch is an important tool for teaching dogs about grooming behaviors, veterinary behaviors, and home care, right? You don't want them to be super excited. You don't want to have a whole lot of tools. And frankly, you don't need a whole lot of tools. That dog that you press their bum and they sit, we used to teach it that way because it's so darn fast. I mean, it didn't take long for most dogs to be like, touch my backside, that's the sit button, It's just that it was useless at a distance and if you didn't have free hands. So on a grooming table, if we can teach them touching your belly is the stand button, right? That's perfect. And that's most of what we wanted to have for many of the things that we do. Even at the vet's office, you think about how many things we would like for them to stand for. So if we can teach them like, hey, I'm asking you to stand just with my touch. I'm guiding you into a stand. And then I'm petting you while you're standing. Aren't you a good dog? You're the bestest, right? Whatever it is that you do for a pep talk for that dog. Now, I will say some dogs are super overly excited by touch. And you have to be really, really slow. Some dogs don't really like an awful lot of touch. So just be aware of that, right? Individuals. We're always dealing with an individual. That dog is an individual. He has his own set of experiences, his likes and his dislikes. Ideally, we can teach them that you like it when we do this. This is pleasant. Maybe it's not awesome, and that's okay. I think also in modern dog training, we're trying to make everything awesome. Like, oh, my dog is so excited by this. And you know what? I kind of see vet visits and dog grooming from a dog's point of view as sort of like if I go to my doctor or the dentist, right? I mean, I picked out a doctor and a dentist that I think the world of. I feel so safe with them. I trust them. I like them. I don't crave going, right? So when I go to a customer's house and their dogs are happy to see me and they're like, oh, cool, yay. That doesn't mean that they love grooming. Once we get on the grooming table or get in the tub, they're probably like, oh, all right, we got to do this part too. And then when we're done, we play again. So I don't need them to think that it's the best thing ever. I just need them to think, this is pleasant. This is okay, and for the owners to be able to do it too, because it's really important for owners. So if you were a trainer and you're teaching classes and stuff, I want you to kind of start thinking about those physical prompting and molding isn't necessarily the bad guy. It's just that its place is for times when we are physically in contact and restrained. So it's a great tool for a dog who is restrained and experiencing physical touch. It's a perfect tool for that. And it stinks if we're trying to use it for off-leash work, right? Then it's just crap. It doesn't work for off-leash works, right? So be thinking about, I think that physical prompting is kind of turned into this ugly term. Like, oh, that's just forcing them to do something. Forcing them, pushing them, pressing. We shouldn't have our hands on our dogs, making them do stuff. And it can be abused that way. I'm not going to lie. Of course it can be abused that way. But for the most part, physical prompting and moving them around and teaching them about how we want them to be positioned while we touch them and what the rules are when we're in that close proximity, it's so natural for them. They learn it so quickly. So if we make it this calm thing and we're super calm and we're encouraging them to be super calm and we're just moving them around and moving them about and helping them be calm, touching them with stuff all over, maybe it's the owners who figure out that, okay, well, when we do your ear medication or when we try to check that bandage, this is how we're going to do it. Physical cues are really quick for a dog to understand. They get it really quickly. So calm the dog down, use your touch, be thinking about how fast they're learning that this is loosey-goosey, talk, loosey-goosey, right? That we don't, anytime I stiffen, they try to calm me back down again. And when they give a little bit of a lift on my foot, it means they want me to lift my foot and hold it in position if that's what their hand is doing. It's there, and it is such a powerful tool. But so many owners don't do it anymore because it's not in the obedience classes. It's not stuff that we do in usual training because that's so much more focused on a dog coming to you or doing what you ask them to do, even if you can't touch them. That's really important. But we don't want this tool to fall by the wayside because every tool has its proper use, right? A screwdriver is not going to help you with a bolt. You need a wrench, right? Like the right tool. You need the right tool, and that tool can be used in a different context. So I want you to be thinking about times when we're holding our dogs and just relaxing them and touching them with stuff. That's a physical prompt. We're molding them into a position. We're teaching them how to guide their bodies into the positions we want. Accept the fact that we're going to move them around, raise a tail, lower a tail, move an ear, move it around 1,000 different ways, that we're going to be touching them all over. Just chill out. I don't need you to stand when I say stand. I don't need you to sit when I say sit. I just need you to follow what my hand is doing with you. And dogs learn it so quickly. If you'd like more information, you can find me at Chrissy@happycritters.net, happycrittersdogtraining.com, or you can join the Facebook group, Creating Great Grooming Dogs podcast, or the Facebook page, Creating Great Grooming Dogs. I really look forward to hearing from you.